Hello and welcome to another edition of Breakfast Club. Here we will look at our plans for Game Week 6 and beyond, and we will also reveal our shock and awe at the lunchtime team sheets as Leicester host Spurs. My name is Joe and today I'm joined by David as well as Tom from Who Got the Assist. Welcome David first, how are you?
I'm so tired. I had to stay up last night. I
Okay.
watched Southampton. Oh, so yeah, it's Friday night deadlines do it. I mean, it's annoying for a lot of people because they have to do their teams early. But you don't have to stay up till midnight writing about a game no one cares about. So worries me.
Well, I think you'll find that we all care passionately about the made-up South Coast derby that is Southampton and Bournemouth, and both of which care neither about each other because the fact the derby down there is Southampton Portsmouth and Bournemouth are just a lower league figment of all of our imaginations. And I say that passionately as a Brighton fan. Tom,
I was going to say,
sorry.
I just want to say that Portsmouth are the lower league team though right now. Just want to nip that in there before we annoy any Bournemouth fans.
Yeah, you just pop down to Portsmouth and tell them that, and that's fine. Welcome, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, Joe and David. Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure to come on the Breakfast Club. All good, all good. I'm glad that, I guess Wilson scored in the last minute, didn't he? I think he was the only one who was a quote-unquote live FPL asset in some way. Maybe King as well, might have decent ownership.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just one of those that I was watching as a pure watch. And I just wasn't particularly excited by either side to some extent. I agree with Dave. All good. Looking forward to today's fixtures and
Well, I saw on social media ticker tape parades practically by Rico's assist because a few people have been fielding him, and I myself had a mini ticker tape parade with Harry Wilson scoring my Sky captain. I believe yours as well, Tom. A few of us who've decided to have a look at some fixtures, which tends to help in Sky. Saw us make the preposterous captaincy of Harry Wilson, so we're in there. Today we're a bit like wildcards of FPL past, present and future. I spent the chip last week, David unleashed his wildcard for this week, and Tom is now active with Game Week 7 and beyond in his sights. So let's have a look at your team first, Tom, see what you've been doing, and then me and David will chip in and slaughter it. No, we won't. We'll complement it, I'm sure. So let's have a look. So I'm going to put up your game week the fixtures first, but I'm also going to put up your game week 6 side. So you clearly weren't happy with that. What weren't you happy about before we have a look at your wild card?
I wasn't too dissatisfied, which probably would set a lot of people off in anger at the wild card. I think there are two things that I was looking at. One was value, and two were fixture swings. With the value side of it, I had a long-term kind of eye on what I was planning for game week kind of 7, 8 onwards. And I was initially planning to do it in the second international break, but I kind of was rubbing up against my team value, as it were.
Yeah.
So I'd been priced out basically if I'd gone kind of beyond this week, I think. And 6 weeks is also a decent point to have data. There's fixture swings for a few of the players that I'm bringing in. I just kind of felt, well, it was time for a reshuffle. And we spoke about on the last podcast, Big at the back and what's happened there. I'm not completely abandoning Big at the back, because you'll see in a second, but I am kind of pivoting slightly away from it to something which favours the offensive players right now, especially with the choice to bring Son in. I think that's quite a key one for me, because I think that's a bit of a rank climber, as we were saying off camera.
Yeah. So basically, you set up pre-wildcard. You're looking at 3-5-2. It can move to a 4-4-2 as well, and you've got some options there on the bench. But obviously, Greenwood's there, so 3 up front is not happening. Let's have a look at your wildcard team. So this is for Game 7 and beyond. This is what you've done here. So take us through that as well.
Okay, so I think I've kept a core of players who are Pope, TAA, Soyonchu, who's basically a 5.0 plus, who comes to us for 4.5, 4.6 because of the fact that FPL opened the game early. Sterling, because I think that you can only have one of Sterling or Kun Aguero, and I'm going to go with Sterling for this season. Kevin De Bruyne, my cousin Todd Cantwell, and Timu Pukki.
Yeah.
Out has obviously gone that backup goalkeeper you saw a minute ago. Robertson and Dean, which is a little bit controversial, but I'm pretty much going to go with that. Shea Bellos, just because I just don't think he's going to be on the right sort of Emery's rotation. Salah is a maybe, and Barnes is unfortunately a bit of a casualty. But who have come in? Who's come in is Song Heung-min, 12 goals, 8 assists over the last couple of seasons. The next three are ace, and Saints at home next. They've just shipped 3 to Bournemouth. Saints didn't defend very well. He's an explosive differential. I think that others are going to find it difficult to reach, to be honest. And he's the most out of the position player in FPL right now too. So I think that he's definitely in for me. Mane at the moment is there because there's 0.9 million difference in him and Salah, and because I've got Mane, I can buy Otamendi at the back. So Otamendi, obviously made that horrendous mistake the other day. Looks a bit better in Donetsk, and I trust Pep to sort that team out, like sort that defense out. And to be honest, with the team that you can see there, I was very lucky that Abraham didn't rise again. He hasn't risen actually. But I can afford that team now at 0.0, which is absolutely great. And Abraham is just there basically as a hygiene factor. Like I'm completely aware that he's outperformed over the last few games. He's scored against teams who have been promoted in the last couple of years. But I think he'll be hygiene. I think he'll just be one of those players that everybody has got, similar to Timu Pukki. So kind of why not really? I mean, on the bench, you've got Kiko, who's going to play when Soyuncu's got Liverpool in game week 8. You've got Hanley, I know, trouble Norwich, but look what it enables. Let's not get hung up on that. And Connolly / Greenwood, I mean, that's just going to be whoever the hell is basically at 4.5, because Greenwood's actually dropping at the moment because people are looking to go to a 3-4-3. But I made a few decisions. So one decision is no Alba. Unfortunately, I would love Aubameyang, but it just disrupts that balance, I think, even though he is a very, very good option. I've still got to figure out Mane versus Mendy versus Salah and a 4.5 like Engels or Lowton, who I see that Dave's got. And I could still go with Kun Aguero instead of Sterling. So I sat on the Kun Aguero rise last night, so I've still got him. I've still got the opportunity, if I want to go with Aguero and Hayden, rather than the 4.5 striker and Sterling. But we'll have to see. But I'm very happy with that wildcard. I did a lot of the work actually this week. So next week, I'm going to just be pretty chilled on it. I just kind of had it in my head. I think if anyone heard the last podcast, that was really what I was looking at doing. And I think there's really good potential in this team. And there's lots of escape routes. And Joe, I know you love escape routes, but there are a lot of escape routes there, as you'll probably see. There's a lot of balance, and it can easily be disrupted by selling a Son down to a Mount or something like that. And suddenly I've got a lot of money to then kind of say, right, it's really gone to, I need to have a Wilson in. Okay, I can do that. I can sell Son to finance.
I've always liked Son in a balanced setup. Well, I've always liked Eriksen as well. They're the cash cow role. You're really happy to have them when Spurs have good fixtures, but soon the form starts to dip off, and soon they start to get rotated. But in the meantime, you've got lots of points from. Well, in theory. But you've set up a sort of 3-5-2 as we were before, but it's a beefed up. So it's like I did on my wildcard. I looked at each place and I thought I could do better, and that's what you've done as well. And Son obviously is better there as well. Dave, before I just give some more thoughts on this, David, you've had a look at this wildcard. You've just wildcarded. Do you look at this and think, oh, God, I wish I'd done that now, or do you look at that and go, well, that's an okay side, but I've got my team.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I like the combination of Sterling and De Bruyne, and I was going to do that, and then I didn't, which I'll explain a bit more when we go through mine. And also the Man City defence at the back as well. I kind of came around to that. Obviously, I was a bit disparaging of it on Scoutcast, but seeing Fernandinho play in defence against Shakhtar Donetsk, who, to be fair, are not necessarily going to be the level of opposition they're going to face every week. I think Fernandinho is going to make a big difference there, and I think there will probably be more clean sheets than we probably predicted at midweek. So then having Otamendi is quite good, and obviously the underlying stats of him are quite good in terms of efforts in the box, set pieces, stuff like that. So it's very balanced, and I'm a big fan of the strategy as well. There's lots you can do with that. If you need to move things on, be it De Bruyne or Son, or either of those two can get Mane into Salah if you need to go back that way, or what have you, or if you need to get a premium forward, you've got several options there in midfield that you can downgrade. So yeah, I like it. And also the other handy thing is the bench is a bench that you're probably not going to be too worried about, right? In that I had a wild card set up I really liked, but I just realised I'd be full of bench headaches. And most of the time, you're not going to be thinking about who to bench because it's largely obvious. But there's still players that will probably still be useful.
Yeah, it's September. Like, if it was a December wildcard, then I'd be really looking at that bench and thinking, right, I need. I mean, last year actually, I think we did do the Christmas period, and I think we were all saying, all the content providers, of course, saying you need to have a bench, you need to have a bench. And actually, I think I only used the third bench guy once, maybe, and that was just because of like someone got injured as well. So actually, I think maybe I'm okay with this. I've got 1.75 people on the bench basically because Connolly's 1 pointer. That might maybe Greenwood, but that's a 1 pointer. Hanley, God, he's always going to be the third defender, the third bencher. Sorry, but he's the 4.0. He's probably going to play because of all the injuries there. I'm very, very rarely going to need him. And if he was a 3.9 million defender, then he may well be in there if I need to prop up the rest of the team. But the thing is, he is playing. So if I need 1 point off the bench in a situation where suddenly I've got 3 players injured, then that's going to be much needed. So I think Hanley does the job very well. So yeah, I mean, it's all about that balance. I'm glad to hear it's not been ripped apart too much.
I like to rotate my bench players. So I do think I do like to have some that play because I like to give myself the choice. So for example, with my wild card a week or so ago, I had Cantwell, Soonyu and Lundstram. I don't want to play them all every week, but I might want to play one, I might want to play two, and it just gives me that option really, because I can't fit them all in, and why should I want to fit them all in? And I suppose you've got that thing, why would you want to have Hanley playing every week? He's a handy player, he's a cheap player, and when he's fit, he's pretty, he is playing, he's getting minutes. And Connolly, as a Brighton fan, I think he's one for next season as an actual genuine starter. When Murray's finally on his last legs, I think he will actually play. He's been heavily tipped as a youngster. He's in the Ireland's under-21 setup, and he's been doing very well there. So yeah,
he scored against Burnley as well.
Yes,
yeah, really high threat in that game.
Indeed. So yeah, he's one who's going to gradually be eased in this season. I know Potter likes him. I like this team, as we've mentioned the word balance before. I like the price point element to it. I also like the bold Salah versus Mane move, and you've just made that, and it's enabled other things. So it's enabled that money is being used elsewhere effectively, I think, by having a Man City defender as well, and being able to have Son and Aubameyang. We mentioned before we came on air, I think they're rank climbers at the moment. Spurs and Arsenal have good fixtures. Son and Aubameyang are double-digit guys. These are the people you can actually captain. As we see there, Son is actually a really good captain for next week. Aubameyang is a great captain for the current week we're in. So if you're captaining Aubameyang now, well, I'm not even going to say good luck. He's just going to score and you're going to get points. I like them. They're the old swords there. They're not shields. So it's a sword and shield type side, but you've got Son there. And I'm actually seriously considering doing not a similar move, but a slightly more bold move of ditching a Liverpool midfielder for their tricky run coming up and reinvesting that money elsewhere for a while. But it's something we can... it's something we've all got to consider at some point as well. It's hit 11:30. David, do we have some team sheets in?
Get my phone out.
Yeah, we do. So let's start with Leicester as the home team. They've made 2 changes, and it looks like it's Harvey Barnes and Iosi Perez that came into the team. But when the tweet came through, they didn't say who'd gone out. So there's me instantly panicking. Oh no! Please don't tell me Maddison's like benched. First week owning him, but no, Maddison is in the team. I'll read through the whole thing. So Schmeichel in goal. Chilwell, Soyuncu.
Soyuncu as well.
We've got 3 different versions.
So I looked it up because people get annoyed that we mispronounce stuff. So Soyuncu is how
I thought it was Soyuncu as well. Josie
I'm going by the Leicester Mercury, so let's blame some local hacks in Leicester.
Let's go with Chaglar.
Yeah,
we go with Chaglar.
Chagwell,
right,
yeah.
Chaglar.
Yeah, big Chags at the back.
Yeah, big Chaggers. Yeah, that's right.
Chaggers.
Moves like Chaggers. There we go. Right. And he's next to Big Johnny. That's Evans, by the way. And then Ricardo Pereira, that's the back 4. And then it looks like it kind of looks like it could be a 4-3-3, although usually it's a 4-1-4-1. We got Ndidi, Tielemans, Maddison, Perez, Barnes, and Vardy. And they can probably set up in any number of different combinations. Yeah. Then the Spurs team, a little bit more surprising. We got Gazaniga in goal.
Okay.
Instead of Lloris. We've got Rose, Vertonghen and Alderweireld both together at centre-back, which does not happen too often at the moment. And then Aurier at right-back. Then we got Winks and Sissoko and Ndombele, I think, in the midfield three. Lamella and Son, probably the two behind Kane. And it does look as if Christian Eriksen is once again in his favourite position, the bench, alongside Lucas Moura. Dele Alli's not on the bench either. Yeah, and it looks like Lloris not even in the squad. Whiteman is the goalkeeper sub. So some interesting things there. I mean, instantly quite worried about anyone with Spurs players, about Eriksen, I suppose, although he was rubbish in the Champions League. So I feel like this could go either way based on those team sheets. I think either team could win this.
Yeah, no, interesting lineups there. Tom's obviously going to be really having a look at Son there.
Yep.
Leicester and Spurs are traditionally quite a high-scoring game. Let's have a look at this. I've certainly got my eye on Son potentially for next week. David, let's have a look at your team. So you have wildcarded. So let's have a look. This is what you're going into Game Week 6 with. Take us through your team and some of the reasons for your decisions there.
Yeah, so I was originally going to go with just Sterling, but my Man City combination was going to be Sterling and De Bruyne, and I still think De Bruyne is a great option, and I feel like an idiot for not including him. But I just I did sort of caveat that on the Scoutcast by saying, well, a lot of what I'm going to do is very much subject to change based on what happens in the Champions League, because we obviously recorded on Tuesday night. And then I kind of was expecting Aguero to get some minutes, and then he didn't. So then instantly, based on the way he's played in recent games, his underlying stats have been very good. He's kind of proved me wrong when I said 2 weeks ago that he could potentially not be worth it long term. I think he probably now is. So, you know, he is nailed on to start this Watford game. He looks like a fantastic captain option for this week. So I thought initially, maybe that's too short term. Maybe I should still not use him. But then I kind of looked ahead, and really you can kind of already guess where he's going to get rotated, so that you can be quite confident that he'll definitely start, I think, the next two games, because he got Preston midweek. Surely Jesus starts that one. Then, of course, it's Everton, and then it's Zagreb after that. You know, if Jesus is going to start and play basically 90 minutes against the Nets, then why would he not do the same against Zagreb? When Aguero really needs to be starting every game in the Premier League, because Man City are 5 points adrift of Liverpool already. So then I kind of thought to myself, so then I just, okay, Aguero is locked in, but then it was a case of, do I want to go without Sterling? And actually I didn't, because kind of the same sort of logic. I think he's still going to start this game, because a lot of people are a bit concerned because he played all of the international games, then 90 minutes against Donetsk as well. So you're thinking, oh, well, maybe Watford's the game he gets rest. But if he does get rested for this one, then like, is he really needed for the Preston game? Probably not. So then he would have a 10-day rest period between that Champions League match and Everton, and that kind of feels like a lot and kind of feels like overkill. So I kind of think that he'll probably play like 60 minutes this week, and his ownership's so high and his stats are still great. And I still think that both Aguero and Sterling are more explosive options than De Bruyne. So that's why I went with both of them. And it's just kind of a little bit different as well. I was kind of looking at a few like lineups, and I don't like to avoid being template. Actually, normally I'd like to prefer to be template, but I just kind of felt like I wanted to shake things up and go down a different approach. And I was close to going Mane over Salah, but in the end, XG was what won me over. Salah's XG has been a lot higher than Mane's. And then really the big decision that I was confident of in the Scoutcast, and I have actually gone through with, is defence. I've really sucked the money out. Alexander-Arnold's my only premium defender. I nearly kept Digne, and I think that Digne will sting me this week. I think a double-figure haul for Digne is kind of quite likely this week, because I can't see Sheffield United scoring. And, you know, Digne always has some threat from set pieces. But I think beyond this week, I just don't think I can be bothered with the roller coaster, especially from what you can see of my team. What it unlocks further forward is great, because I've got 7 attackers who I'm going to start every week, and the attack is balanced. That's the thing, is if I'd have kept Dean and gone for maybe a Man City defender, then I wouldn't be able to have Maddison as my third midfielder, which Maddison just kind of covers me for a few other options. So then the bottom line is, I think it feels like quite flexible. We talked about balance and exit strategies. We've talked about balance so much, we're basically all Thanos at this point. But with the exit strategy, Aguero means that if he does look more rotation prone in a week or so's time, or 2 weeks or whatever, then I can get to Aubameyang if I want, and then I've got 1 million in the bank. Because Karen was saying, wasn't he, on the Scoutcast, that he thinks there could be a shift in the captaincy template. You know, Arsenal are going to become a bigger part of that in a few weeks' time, so I can get to Aubameyang if I need to, and then Maddison allows me to get to Mount if I want, or Daniel James, or Ceballos, or any of those other players. He's above that bracket, but still has actually been performing quite well. Probably due a goal or an assist or something in a game that I think, like I was saying, looking at those team sheets, I'm quite confident he can get something. So I'm probably not going to make any moves next week. I'd rather not, but you know, in terms of getting to other options, I think both Aguero and Maddison are kind of like the keys there. And then just with the defenders, I mean, it's just I just look for a rotation really. I mean, Dan Burn, I think is probably actually carries the most goal threat out of all the Brighton defenders. So I'm kind of hoping for something today. Lundstrom, obviously, I don't need to explain that. Lowton as well. Mentioned him on the Scoutcast. Burnley has some nice fixtures. And Masuaku, I like West Ham's fixtures as well. I think they've kept 2 clean sheets in a row now. And Masuaku's created 2 big chances in the first 5 games, which is the most of any other West Ham defender. And he's suspended for this week, but I wouldn't want to be starting at home to Man United anyway. But the fixtures in a few weeks get a little bit nicer. And from what we've heard from the local press, he seems to be miles ahead of Cresswell in the pecking order right now. So, yeah.
Okay.
It's a bit different, but I quite like it.
So, Tom, what do you reckon to this? Because you're wildcard, so you can actually look at this and either reject some of the ideas or think, that's a good idea. I think I'll have that.
No, I've considered a lot of these, and I particularly Maddison. Like, he's the one that basically I like him and Mount are the 2 that I wish I could fit in, and because I've got Son, I can then be like, okay, well, Maddison's doing well, all right, I'll buy him. Mount's doing well, I'm gonna buy him. And my question would be, Dave, like, why did you go this week? Because like you probably had a decent bus team for this week going in, and that was why I just thought, well, I'm going to leave it because it's Friday night football, right? So like this whole week hasn't been a volatile week in the market. Like I can still get Luka Dean versus Sheffield United, like, and then next week, like on the Friday night, I can pull the wild card. Like, did you go this week because of like price issues? Like, why did you decide to go for game week 5?
Well, I mean, I said on a few days ago that I was a bit gutted that I didn't do it the time that Joe did, because I think that was a week where there was quite a lot of fluctuations and some players were starting to really accelerate out of my reach. KDB and Mount were 2 examples. There's a few others. And basically, it was kind of like a combination of, maybe I should have wildcarded last week. Some of these options are getting out of hand. I kind of dead-ended my team as well. So I kind of I gave myself no choice, really, because my third midfielder was Norwood. Now it's Maddison, and I know that like you don't just wildcard to change one thing, but I was just kind of getting fed up with defense as well, because they just weren't delivering. I was spending so much money there, and when you look at some of the underlying stats for some of these teams, you know that the XGC for so many teams are so high. And really when you look at what offensively a lot of these defenders are offering, it isn't actually as great as you might think. Like Alexander-Arnold and Digne, I think, are the only 2 that really justify inclusion based on their offensive potential, whereas the rest of them just don't quite justify them, because really, if you're spending that extra money, you want clean sheet and goal threat or consist potential, and there's not really any of them that are ticking all of those boxes other than I think Alexander-Arnold. So I just thought, let's shift everything forward. And I mean, I maybe could have done it next week, but really my bus team wasn't good enough. I mean, generally I like to hold off, but you know, I mean, sometimes there's a lot to be said for wildcarding, kind of not because you have to, because you like to, and then you never let it get so bad that you have to. That was always my strategy in years gone by, and that period where you put it off for a while. And this is me. This is neither my team, so I'm not saying that people are doing it wrong if they're also doing the same thing, but I don't like to let things slide for maybe 3 weeks at a time. And to be honest, I've been sub 50 for 2 weeks in a row, so just ticked a lot of boxes, and now it's out of the way. I don't have to kind of like think about it anymore.
You don't want to tread water, do you? I can kind of see the argument about I don't have to worry about it anymore. I think that it's one of those things that, like, when your team value and what you can buy rubs up against the team that you want, that creates several issues, and I think that it's probably the right thing to do. I think Luka Dean and TAA particularly are the 2 who have really stood out early. Robbo, I think, was very, very good in the last game, wasn't he? Like, he could easily have got a goal and 2 assists, but I'm loath to lose him, but I think I kind of have to. I think Dean is the only one that I was a little bit regretful to sell. The problem is, as you said, you need to get the balance between the individual and the team. And with a defender, you need to have that team element.
Yeah.
And for him, it was all about the individual madness and him getting that kind of 12 pointer through, getting a goal and doing something else. And he was never. I don't feel Everton are going to get the clean
Tom,
sheet.
I know you like the psychology of fantasy football management. I've kept Luca Dean in my team, but I agree with you. I think he is a great asset. But am I psychologically thinking that because I, like many other people on their second wildcard last year, looked at Everton's fixtures, thought, oh no, they look awful, I'll get Luca Dean out. And Luca Dean then went on a fantastic run, getting obscene clean sheets really against.
It is.
And also getting those attacking points as well. And even the free kicks that were close were just painful to watch as a non-owner. But do you think the psychology of fantasy management is affecting us with Luca Dean and other players like that?
Yeah, I think so, because I guess, like, in terms of herd mentality is probably the key one. Herd mentality has two impacts. One is is greed, so you want the points that other people are getting. The other one is fear, so you fear the fact that these people are going to get some points and you're not going to be part of it. With what we're seeing at the moment, obviously big at the back is getting a bit of negative press, and I think that people are looking at the likes of Callum Wilson, and looking at the likes of Tammy Abraham, looking at the likes of Mason Mount, and thinking, well, I can push all the money forward. Why have I got a 6 million or so defender? I think that's what the impact is. So in some ways, around the wildcard period, that's a completely different period to now. So maybe it's not quite comparing apples with apples. So around then, you see what other people are doing, how other people are gearing up for the chip period, chip season, however you want to put it. And I think that was why we all went with Kolasinac over Dean last year, for example, because Kolasinac happened to have a double game week. Maybe the lesson to be learned there is that actually form's more important than the fact that people have got 2 games every now and again. And with Dean, he's one of those players he will do very, very well over the course of the season. I'll have my eye on him, and if he does if he and Everton do improve, I will be looking to bring him back in. But it's not so much a psychological decision with Dean. I think at this point, it's more of a decision in terms of reacting to how everything's shaping out. Like, because we've got so many players in midfield and in the forward positions doing so well. I think it's just Vestergaard, isn't it, in the top 20 for defenders, as we saw through the mad rush to buy him in, which is just evokes images of lemmings going. It feels like a Stephen Ward the other year. But because of that sort of push forward, and because of, in my team I've got Son, like, someone had to be sacrificed, and that was not going to be TAA, and that was going to be Luca Dean, because TAA has that element of being able to give you a clean sheet. Dean probably doesn't at the moment. Of course, Dean, I've still got him for this week against Sheffield United. I think he will keep a clean sheet. That's why I didn't wildcard this week. And the next week against Man City, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I've got some thoughts on David's wildcard. I'll start with the good bits first, which is good, and the players I really like. So let's have a look at some expected stats. Who's top of that? It's Tammy Abraham. So he's expected to score. This is expected goals. He is the guy at the top of the table in terms of the last couple of weeks. So he's the most recent guy who has been expected to score most. And guess what? He has scored loads of goals as well. So I think he's a great asset to get. I urge people, have a look at Chelsea's fixtures coming up. They're looking great as well. So he's a great asset to have. With Maddison, I'm going to turn to the goals imminent table for this one. I really like Maddison there. Once again, have a look at the fixtures. Game week 8, looking a bit dodgy. Game week 7, fantastic. Game week 9 onwards, it's a sea of blue or green, whichever colour scheme you're looking at for your fixture ticker there. I really like him. Maddison's up there with Rashford in terms of he's due a goal. Interesting that Pepe as well is mentioned there. Now, he was mentioned by Karam during a Scoutcast this week. He was a differential for the next 4 weeks. So for those that perhaps can't afford Aubameyang but can afford Pepe, and for some reason don't want Son or already have Son or KDB, Pepe could do well according to goals imminent table. But I'm just going to say I really like Aguero this week as a captain. I don't have him this week, and it's almost like it doesn't matter about everyone else. This week is just Aguero's at home. He's rested. He's against Watford. Yeah. But anyway, you're in for a really good game week, I think. But what I don't like about it, this is for me. This is the way I wildcard for good or bad. But I think long term, it's not the kind of wildcard team I'd like. I think the focus on having Aguero, Sterling and Salah, I think a choice has to be made, I think, in terms of the overall balance. And see, Tom has made that choice and he's gone for Son. I've made that choice and I've gone for KDB. I think having those three, I'm not saying those three aren't great players. I like to have backups as well. I like to be able to afford the Luca Deans, the KDBs, the Sons, the
such a dollar, John T. Backups of backups.
I want them. Yeah.
Starfleet standard.
Yeah, I want a backup to Nick Pope. I don't want Button on my bench. I want those kinds of things. So for me, I think with Burn, Lundstram, Loughton, Masuaku, it's just too cheap for me at the moment.
Defence does worry me a tiny bit, but as I kind of said on the Scoutcast, there's not really anyone I want. So I mean, that's the thing is, if I can charge up a superpower front seven that I don't have to change too often by going with a bit of a rotation in defence, I don't know, it could work out. So I appreciate it's a bit of a risk, but I want to give it a go because I'm bored of premium defenders. They've been really annoying me.
I feel like we're speaking the language of like FPL 2 or 3 years ago at this point, just because we always used to have, didn't we, one big defender, a Leighton Baines type, and then we had like somebody who would be happily playing every week, like a Macaulay or something like that, who was 4.5, 5.0. He'd be the second defender, and the third and fourth defenders would be like your Eric Peters sort of types, wouldn't they? Like your 4.4 million rotating wing back that you play in the home games. And I feel like we've really reverted back to that sort of sense of 3-4-3 or 3. In my case, I'm thinking of it as a 3-4-3, except Son's my out position striker, but 3-5-2. And I think it's really interesting to see how it's kind of gone, because the last couple of years it was all about those big defences. Like Man United 3 years ago now were so good in those first opening games. Last year, obviously, Liverpool ran away with it. And City obviously showed their value as well. Whereas this year, I think we've just got, because of a lot of issues, a little bit of a fracturing of that sort of idea. And it's nice. It's interesting. It's nice as a long-term player to see it go back to that sort of 3-4-3 heyday, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I made a decision not to go 3-4-3 on my wild card because of Cantwell, weirdly. As in my fifth midfielder, I wanted to play. So I thought...
He's a fourth midfielder, Joe.
Yeah, he's a fourth midfielder, but he's a fifth midfielder that I want to play.
Yeah, no, he is. He
because really is. I also... Now, Mason Mount's probably out this week. Well, let's go to my team then. So I'm sort of in the middle of what you were saying, really. I'm slightly going old school, but slightly new school as well. So I haven't gone just one premium defender. I want two, because I do think the likes of Luca Dean are really good. I think Tom has just gone, but hopefully he's going to be back very soon.
Sorry, my video just died.
Okay, now you've come back in a different place. Okay, so I just want to explain to our viewers that you're not David, you're Tom. And
my name's Tom.
And David.
My name is David.
Yes. Okay. So the name's been out of our because of that. But nevertheless, let's move on. I'm still Joe. Let's move on to my team. So it's sort of in the middle. So I like Alexander-Arnold. Yes, I do want Luca Dean. I'm wondering if the psychology of last season is affecting me, but I have kept him as well. I like Salah and Sterling, or rather, I like having two premiums. But I don't like having three, because I like to be able to have someone like KDB or Son. Mason Mount is a gift. He's so cheap. He probably won't play this weekend, but by all accounts, he looks like he's ready for the following weekend. So Gameweek 7 onwards, good to go. I would like a third striker, Tammy Abraham, and Haller could possibly become Abraham. So I've given myself a sort of price points on there. I would like to have the option of having all three, but it would disturb it slightly. So I feel I've gone for a bit of mix and balance, really. So Alexander-Arnold, Luca Dean, Otamendi, they're my defenders. I've got Pope with Henderson as a backup for him. Midfield, Salah, Sterling, KDB, Mount and Cantwell. I've got Pookie and Haller up front. I've got Lundstram, Greenwood and Sionyu on my bench. Sionyu, so it can be a little sort of 4-4-2, 3-5-2. I didn't want to make any moves this week, so I haven't. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do next week, apart from maybe Haller to Abraham. But one thing I am thinking of is is whether to overmanage or not to overmanage. And so one of the things I could do is go even further to spreading the love around the team. And this is maybe what other people are thinking as well. So they've already made some downgrades. They've already got just 2 premiums maybe, or maybe they've got 3 premiums, and they're thinking, who shall I get rid of? Well, I don't like the look of Salah, of Liverpool's next few fixtures. And I'm wondering if Salah down to Son could be an option. And that would free up money to upgrade Greenwood to, say, Abraham or Barnes. And that's a bold move, because it means, as Tom was saying, it's do you take that risk? And you've got the psychology of you want the points, but at the same time you have the fear of the points as well. So it's that kind of risk and fear. So that is a decision I think myself and maybe others will make. Do they ditch Sterling for a Son or KDB? Do they ditch Aguero? I don't know. These are the decisions I think they're making. I
definitely chickened out of those.
Yeah, I've chickened out of them already. I'm talking about them now, and I'll probably chicken out again. But I'm thinking about them, and I wish I didn't chicken out. Tom, what do you think of that type of move? Basically, a risky move, but a potentially quite rewarding move.
Oh, it's just one of those where I kind of, obviously it's down to managerial judgment, whatever. Obviously we need to take responsibility for others' decision making based on our advice, but in reality I say it's down to the manager. It's down to your view of whether Son's going to be able to outscore Sterling and Salah and be worth the transfer in and the transfer out. In terms of what you're saying about over management, like that's something that I came up with over the summer of last year, actually, which is basically splicing together FPL and psychology. So it's the idea of, like, obviously you're always going to overthink as the FPL manager. You will, if you're watching this, or you're sort of person to listen to it back, well, you know who I am from hearing me speak. We know who these guys are from hearing them speak. Like, overthinking is always going to happen because you're an engaged FPL manager and you occupy a lot of your brain is occupied by thinking about FPL a lot more than your average guy. Like in my office, I don't know, people that you guys know as well, like they look at their FPL team on a Friday night and just go, all right, who people are bringing in? Yeah, that'll do. I'm going to buy that guy. Whereas he'll be like, well, what are you doing? Soyuncu's fantastic, a Turkish international. He's playing for Leicester. He's now playing full time. And they'll be like, who? But yeah, overthinking is always going to happen. Overmanagement is the evil cousin, which is actively press and confirm. So in your case, it would be actively press and confirm on Sterling or Salah to Son and being like, what have I done? Like, this is linked to a lot of things in psych, like sunk cost fallacy, fear of missing out, which people know, and herd mentality that I spoke about. But with overmanagement, that's just the case of looking at a move which is kind of 50-50 and kind of thinking to yourself, is this overmanagement? Am I just doing something because I feel like it's better for this week? And like, am I giving up the opportunity or the opportunity cost to next week have 2 free transfers, be able to see what's happened the week just gone, and be able to make a more informed decision? And for a lot of my transfers this year, like, I've taken 1 hit, whereas at this time over the last couple of years I've taken 3 or 4 maybe. Maybe not that high, maybe 2 or 3. But being able to kind of building sort of behavioural check for myself and say, all right, is this over management? Am I doing this, like, am I buying this player because making that FT for any reason other than the fact that kind of satisfied how I'm feeling at the moment? It's really big because FPL is a marathon, right? And a lot of people who are going to be watching will give up by November, but we're here until next year, May. So being able to keep that in the tank and being able to think of, right, okay, I might maybe having a bad period at the moment, but am I going to over manage my team? Am I going to be selling the big premiums and switching all around, only to find that the big premiums I've gotten rid of are going to smash it this week because I've just lost patience effectively, or I've tried to overdo my team? A lot of the time, the beauty of it is that you can just leave it until Friday, barring price rises, and a lot of the time as well, just bearing over management in mind as an issue is really key, because it is something that affects everybody.
Yeah, I know. I think over management is something I've been really thinking about this week, because I've been thinking about where my rank is. So I'm about 600,000 in the world. I prefer to be higher, obviously, but I'm glad I'm not 2 million in the world, but I could be after today. But I was looking at ways to improve. So I was asking about over management and about the questions that we ask ourselves about, should I have made that change? Should I have just done nothing? And it was something I was advocating on the Scoutcast, just do nothing for a while, and sometimes it can be the best policy. So for me, actually, doing nothing hasn't worked. So making changes has worked. So if I'd have just stuck with my game week 1 side and not done anything and just left it a so-called zombie team, I'd have 275 points. But as it is, I've got 293 points. So the transfers I've made, actively making those transfers, have actually brought me a net gain there of 18 points. But not captaining Salah every week has really cost me. And this is quite interesting. And I'm wondering if this is why I was thinking about getting rid of one of Salah and Sterling, which sounds crazy, and just sticking with one. At the moment, I'm sort of just sticking with Sterling. Happens to be the wrong one. But even if I'd have stuck... So at the moment, I've got 56 points from my captains. But if I'd have only captained Salah, I'd have 90 points from those captains' decisions. If I'd have only captained Sterling, I'd have 78. So even just sticking with Sterling, as I'm sort of doing at the moment, I'd have had 22 points more if I'd done that all season. And if I'd just stuck with Salah, I'd have had 34 points more. So in both cases, I'd actually be in the top or second in the moderators and contributors lead of Fantasy Football Scout rather than 10th. So that's, and I'd probably be around the 100k mark, which is exactly where I'd want to be at this stage of the season, because that would set me up nicely. So my problem, it hasn't been transfers, they've been okay, but it's the captaincy and it's that sense of over management. But I just want to draw your attention to a couple of people who replied to that thread. So Dre made, with no changes, if he'd have done absolutely nothing, he'd be on 321 points, but he's actually on 311. And he said the same thing. Captaincy has hurt him. So he's done the same as me. He's tried to chase a captaincy and hasn't succeeded each week. Jumping from Callum Wilson as well. So it's that, yeah. I noticed that Mark, who is top of the Fantasy Football Scout Community League, has Callum Wilson still. Simon March, who was on the Breakfast Club last week, is Callum Wilson still. So a lot of the top managers are preaching patience here, and they're not over managing their side. And Dre would have done better as well. There's another one as well. Rishi, current score 281, but if he'd actually done nothing, he'd be on 296. And he also agrees captaining Salah has proved to be costly. So I'm thinking of one of Sterling and Salah is costing me. I'd need to get rid of one of them because it's just psychologically for the captain. I just need to stick with one, just because they're both going to score well. But hopping to and fro them. David, what do you think about that? Because you've just wildcarded as well. You've got Aguero into the mix. What do you? I mean, you've got 3 people you could captain. But yeah, what do you think about how the captaincy's gone for you this season? And are you considering any changes to that?
Well, I mean, firstly, I want to say I am not touching this app with a barge pole because I don't want to find out that I could have earned 30 or 40 more points by doing nothing, because that'll just annoy me. I understand when people are looking at it. I totally get it. It's really interesting. It's really cool. But I don't have time to wind myself up with this. So I personally am going to avoid it. But you know, I
don't have time. I'm just too busy.
I don't have time to focus on.
I'm so busy, man.
This is about trying to get a good rank. You should find time, David. Find time.
I'm happy to let other people torment themselves and learn a few lessons. So I was going to say the ideas you just mentioned. I get that. I mean, maybe. I mean, I kind of like the fact that I have several options I could captain, because I don't ever want to feel forced into captaining that one player who I've got because he's the only one who's above a certain amount of money or what have you. I always like to. I mean, last season I felt I had some success by always making sure I had 2 to 3 of the captain candidates for any given game week, and I think I have them for this one, and I think I have them for the next few, and I have the option to get Aubameyang in, who I think is going to come into the mix as well. I don't think I'd ever want to get rid of people who are diluting my captaincy success because it makes me overthink. Because I'm still going to get those points. Let's say that Sterling, I haven't captained him today. Let's say he gets 12 points. I'm not going to be like, oh no, that's really annoying. Even I mean, it'll be annoying, yes, if Aguero only gets 6, but I'd still rather have the 12 points than nothing. I mean, it depends where you spend the money, I suppose. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be moving players on because I'm not always going to captain them. But it is annoying because I think we've been a bit unlucky so far this year, because the approach I've taken to captaincy that I took last year obviously had a great deal of success in the first 16 game weeks. It then got a little bit lucky around. There was a couple of times on that ridiculous run where I was getting a bit jamming. But for most of the season, it led to a decent set of captaincy points. I actually so I didn't work this out myself. Someone else did. I earned more points from my captaincy than the guy who won the whole thing. So I got something like 450 points from my captaincy, and he got like 420. So I'm not going to move away from the metrics that I'm using to pick my captain, even if this season I've kind of been on the wrong side of it, because I still think I've made the right choices each game week. It's just been a bit unfortunate. So yeah, I mean, this research is interesting, and I can see the points of it, but I'm not gonna change anything.
It is depressingly interesting.
That's the thing. It's depressing. That's why I'm just like, no, I'm not listening.
La, I'm not listening. Yeah, Tom, what do you think? I mean, we've spoken a bit about over management as well, but specifically this idea of the captaincy. I noticed this week you've gone for Son, so you've got a different tactic.
I don't know if I'm going to keep with Son. Let's be fair. It's just a picture that I took at wherever it was last night when I was doing my.
I think he's good. I think he's the best. He's best.
No, I agree. I agree. No, I think he's him or Mane will get the armband. With captaincy, FPL General made a good point actually on his pod that would be the one thing that he'd do away with because it's just so random. I wouldn't quite agree with that because I think it does give a sense of extra excitement, which is basically all we're here for at the end of the day. However, I think with the captaincy, like it's been an underrated part of why people who there's a lot of people who I know and will know through the social community or just through FPL content provider sort of backgrounds who aren't doing as well as they think they would normally be doing at this point. And I think that's a lot of that's been down to the captains not quite firing. But if you take a step back and you say, okay, before the Brighton game, which Man City won, I own Sterling, I own Kevin De Bruyne. Who was I going to captain? I was going to captain Sterling because the analog and the digital stats were both pointing towards Sterling being the best option. All right, okay, so that hasn't quite worked out. We've got Norwich next, Norwich away. Leaky Norwich with all of their centre-backs injured. Who am I going to captain out of Sterling, Salah? I think that's probably a bit of a field day, isn't it, for Man City if they do what we know what they can do. And both of these, obviously, we know now with hindsight, and there's a lot of people probably jumping on me in the comments. There's a lot we know through hindsight that those were not the optimal picks, but ultimately, would you do that exact same decision again? Of course you would, every single time. You can't go back and think, oh, I wish I captained Salah against Arsenal, for example. Yeah, okay. Well, obviously he's returned and Sterling hasn't, but you'd always pick the City guy in the home game against the easy fixture. Sorry, Joe, I know you're a Brighton fan. I think there's a lot of kind of post-rationalising about why I made a mistake about the captain sometimes. I think it's just a bit silly. I agree with Dave, despite giving him epic bants earlier on, because looking at that in hindsight doesn't tell you anything. There's no lesson there.
But it was more the strategy.
On the day, it didn't work out. Dennis Norden, it would be all right on the night. It was not all right on the night this time. But it's more. But next time, it'll be fine.
Say, for example, Sterling. I captained Sterling both of those times. But I don't. The point I was making isn't, I wish I'd captained Salah instead. It was, wish I'd just stuck with Sterling all season. I wish I'd just stuck with Salah all season because I'd be better off by 20 to 40 points in both counts. So I think that was the point. It was sort of. Now, like David was saying about dead-ending his team. So he got Norwood in, so he saw his team and he thought, oh, God, wildcard now because I got Norwood there. So it's all it's as a fantasy manager, you're doing something to force yourself into a decision, for good or bad. Yeah. And I just feel that I need a push because I'm not, it's not the way I've done things. And I just feel, I wish someone had forced me, just, I don't know, handed me a whole bunch of money or I don't know, good God forbid, threaten me with violence or something to say, you just captain Salah all season or just captain Sterling because I'll be better off.
That's never going to happen though, is it?
No, I'm not going to be threatened to do that.
It's exactly. Well, it depends how much you troll on Twitter, Joe, really. But to be honest, I just think it's such a false argument to argue about something that's already happened. The decision's been made, right? This does not reflect my politics before anyone starts to read into that. but on this, on something like that, you've made the decision already, and it was a good decision. You can't be upset about the fact that you've thought about things, you've looked at things like, you know, the Captain Sensible or the other fantastic captain articles out there, and gone with a logical choice. Like you cannot be upset with that. It's just not worked out on the day. And we know that football, like if we could all predict football, we'd all be like jostling for the overall rank number one. But football is not one of those games that you can kind of say, okay, yeah, you know, like in baseball, oh yeah, I know this guy's going to be one of the top scorers this year, on top batters this year. It's not. There's always that element, isn't there, of beautiful random luck and effervescence and something that takes the ball past the goalkeeper, form, confidence, whatever you want to call it. There's always so many factors. Like, will your forward stick out his foot at the opportune moment, like Aubameyang did the other week, to just stud it past the goalkeeper? Like, there are so many sliding doors moments if you watch the games, especially as an FPL manager, and you can't get too upset about it. Like, if you just watch football, you can tell that you can't get too annoyed about it. If all the stats are showing one thing and it's not quite worked out that week, that's the value of patience, the value of not over managing. It's the value of just kind of thinking to yourself, I've made the right decision here. It's not quite worked out. Like Sterling last week hit the post from a header, 3 or 4 Giltez chances that Aguero really should have converted. Like, another day, that was a goal and an assist, and it wouldn't be even an argument about captaining Sterling this week. I know a few people were just like, oh, I'm selling him. Really? Okay. But this happens every year. I think I'm very long in the tooth now, and I think it's just one of those things that we shouldn't get too over worried about. Like, if the player's having like the Eden Hazard year a few years ago under Mourinho, where he was clearly just not at the races, didn't fancy it, Paul Pogba sort of style without sounding like a frothing Souness, like that sort of thing is when you take action after watching the games, right? But with someone like Sterling, who's still posting fantastic stats, you can't just look at that and think, oh yeah, I'm getting rid of him because he hasn't scored when I've looked at the results. If you watch the games, you can see straight away without that's a bit of a silly decision. So just got to hope, really, haven't you? That they've done everything that you need to do.
Mine was even worse than that, because I was thinking of getting rid of the guy that's scoring loads, like Salah, just to avoid making a decision. I think it's interesting, the point about over management, because I can tell, there are a lot of people just don't want to know that, and there's people like me who do, and I think, actually, okay, I've made points from my transfers, so I'm okay with that. It's those that are doing worse off now than if they had never changed anything in their side, and that can be very frustrating. But I think for both of you there, I've a sort of the shoes on the other foot, really, because I usually preach patience and not over managing, and it's good that you two have sort of reined in my vague 1% maverick tendencies, and so I can go on my mission of being 100%
focus on what you do best, though. I guess for you as well, because like obviously we've all been watching you for so many years in a non-weird way, and we all know that like your stock and trade is playing a straight, without being pejorative, is playing a straightforward game. And sometimes I think that if you're on social media and you see the week-to-week churn and you kind of think, oh god, this guy is being lauded, like, I see this guy on social media bringing him, I see this guy in the forums bringing him, oh my lord, there's threads and there's big comments and there's big conversations about this guy. But the power of being able to say, right, okay, I actually don't believe that this guy is worth buying, so I'm going to leave that, is definitely something that you have to weigh up as well, and it's something that I undervalued, I think, when I first started doing this, and now hopefully I've gotten better at it. And obviously you guys are very long in the tooth as well, so you know what it's.
I do think this for me, it's a very long way of saying I'll probably do what I should do, which is play the price points, play the dullards, look at Haller, look at Abraham, easy move, done. And I've still then got 2 free transfers for the following week. Exactly.
Like I think it's the same formula which has benefited you throughout the course of the last few years, which is breaking it down into those price points and thinking, well, actually, it doesn't really matter who the player is to some extent. Obviously, you've got the ownership, you've got the whatever. But yeah, that's what you've always done. You've always said, okay, this player is this price point. This player is a bit more superior because of X, Y, and Z. This is an easy move. I will make easy move. Well, that's what Andy does as well. And that's why you've both done so well recently.
I think
throughout your careers.
I think on the Scoutcast coming up next week, we shall discuss this type of issue further, I imagine. Also, we'll have, hopefully, Luke and Az will be back as well. They play the game very differently to people like me, so that will please those that like a more maverick tendency.
Az is they're both too busy doing the Top Guns, though, Joe. They're going to leave you behind. That's kind of what I told them. Just leave these guys behind. Leave these old fun buddies behind and do your crazy maverick thing.
Yeah, they can go off to their world of... Anyway, their lower ranks. No, I didn't say that. No. I shall see them again next week, hopefully. David and Tom, thanks so much for joining me. Just before we go, David, me and Tom have been chatting a lot about overmanagement there. But was there anything you finally wanted to add? Because you've got your wildcarding team, so it's an exciting moment because you've got your team and you're ready for them. Is it? I mean, I've hypothesised that Aguero's your main man and have a cup of tea and forget about it because you're captaining the main man this week. So, yeah, what do you think about this week?
I'm looking forward to it. I was kind of over the international break. Obviously, I had my operation and my recovery was really took way longer than it should have done. So then I was just kind of really down in the dumps about everything, and I was kind of bored of FPL. And then the second I did my wildcard, I got this buzz of okay, I'm ready for this now.
Buzzing, mate, I'm buzzing.
Yeah, so all it needs now is for it to actually come off because I like the look of it, but that means nothing if you get 40 points at the end of Sunday. So I'm in a good place. Whereas last week I was just kind of a bit apathetic towards my team. So if nothing else, I feel a bit more enthusiastic than I did.
No, it's because it's an exciting moment in a fantasy Premier League manager's season when they wildcard. They go into it, like me, they might come out of it and go, "Oh my god, I wish I'd done better."
that could be me.
Or they might kind of go, "Wow," but it's the bit before that's the good bit, the expectation, the hope. We've always got hope. But for now, Tom and David, thanks so much for joining me, and good luck with your game weeks. And finally, a reminder: we've been having some stats from the members area, the goals imminent table, expected stats as well. If you're a member, go in, have a look at them all. Contact me and others on Twitter and we can guide you through that. Or alternatively, if you haven't got membership, get it, because lots of stats and articles and stuff like that await you. But for now, goodbye.